I'm Britt Clennett in Hong Kong and welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Away from the unfolding crisis at home, US President Donald Trump visits the Middle East on his maiden journey abroad since taking office. Sweden drops rape investigation over WikiLeaks founder. Millions of victims suffering from rare diseases in China see new hope as the country speeds up drug approvals. Chief Executive CY Leung is holding his ground over the UGL payments case. He continued to push for pro-democracy lawmaker Kenneth Leung to quit the investigation panel, saying the accountancy rep is prejudiced against him. His comments come after pro-establishment lawmaker Holden Chow, who let Leung amend committee documents relating to the probe, stepped down from the panel yesterday. He said Pan-Democrats would be displaying double standards if Leung remains. Police are searching for a taxi driver who is involved in a fatal hit-and-run accident in Kowloon City. A 60-year-old man was run over by the taxi at 4 in the morning when he was crossing an intersection along Prince Edward Road West with a trolley. He was taken to the hospital and later confirmed dead. The taxi driver had already fled the scene when officers arrived. Police are calling for the suspect to hand himself over. The Secretary for Financial Services and Treasury, Casey Chan, backed the latest mortgage tightening measures introduced by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority yesterday. He said the policies will help banks better manage risks. But solely relying on new measures to cool the overheated property market won't be enough. He says the government will try to increase the housing supply as well. And moving away from Hong Kong, the saga involving US President Donald Trump and the FBI director he fired, James Comey, continues to rock the White House. Comey has now agreed to testify publicly in front of a Senate Intelligence Committee, where he'll be expected to answer tough questions about the FBI's Russian inquiry. Panel Vice Chair Mark Warner said he hopes the testimony will help answer questions that have arisen since Comey was, quote, suddenly dismissed by the president. Meantime, another leaked document cited by the New York Times claimed Trump told Russian officials Comey was a, quote, nut job and that his removal would relieve pressure on his administration over its suspected ties to Russia. And questions remain over whether the firing came before or after a memo from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
I don't believe he in any way indicated anyone directed him, but in fact he wrote the memo. You know, I think one thing having a decade of doing investigations has taught me is that it's suspicious when a lawyer doesn't write memos for the record. We've had investigations where they claim that didn't happen and it wasn't plausible.
Well, while the drama unfolds in Washington, Trump has embarked on his first overseas trip as US president. First stop, Saudi Arabia, before heading to Israel, Belgium and Italy. The trip is being billed as an opportunity to visit countries sacred to the three of the world's biggest religions. Ahead of the president's meeting with Pope Francis at the Vatican on Wednesday, the White House has announced Callista Gingrich as Trump's pick for Vatican ambassador. She's the wife of former Republican House Speaker Newt Gingrich and produces documentary films on public policy. Trump and the Pope have openly disagreed on a number of subjects, including climate change and the refugee crisis, setting the stage for what might be an awkward first meeting. Trump has touched down in the Saudi Arabian capital of Riyadh, where he was greeted by King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. There he'll attend the Arab Islamic American Summit, a gathering attended by dozens of leaders of the Muslim world. His office said he'll deliver a speech expressing his, quote, hopes of a peaceful vision of Islam. Regional security and terrorism are among subjects likely to top the agenda.
What I like about the Trump administration is the fact that they talks the talk and walks the walk when it comes to combating terrorism, and they are very aware of the regional dynamics and geopolitical challenges here in the Middle East, and they know that you cannot combat terrorism and destroy terrorism without going after the roots of terrorism. And the roots of terrorism is basically the sectarian practices of the radical Iranian regime.
To Iran now, where President Hassan Rouhani has been re-elected as the country's leader, according to early poll releases. State television congratulated Rouhani on his victory. According to near-complete results, Rouhani led with 59% of the vote, compared with 40% for his main rival, hardline judge Ebrahim Raisi. The re-election is likely to safeguard the nuclear agreement Rouhani's government reached with global powers in 2015, under which most international sanctions have been lifted in return for Iran curbing its nuclear program. And closer to home, the Chinese government is set to publish its first national list of rare diseases. That will serve as a guide for policymakers to speed up drug approvals for millions suffering from rare diseases. Anita Lee has more.
New hope for victims of rare diseases in China. Beijing taking steps to help an estimated 16 million of its citizens who need specialist drugs which are either not approved or not covered by public insurance policies. 8-year-old Cuckoo suffers from a rare genetic disorder called TSC. He needs a drug called Sabril to control his seizures, but it's really hard to find in China, so his parents have to get it smuggled in from places like Turkey and Taiwan. One reason drugs like Sabril are not easy to find in China is because Beijing's health budget is tight and the approval process is long. Specialist drugs for rare diseases are a low priority, but that could change. The Health Ministry is putting together a list of 100 rare diseases to help guide policymakers who are overhauling the healthcare system. Campaigners say the system is in urgent need of an upgrade, with many patients suffering from rare diseases simply waiting to die. Meanwhile, Cuckoo's family is watching developments closely, hoping that one day Sabril will be covered by their insurance policy, easing the financial burden of keeping their only child healthy.
Coming up next, the latest from the world of business. And Wall Street ended higher on Friday thanks to strong corporate earnings news. But for the week, the major indices closed in the red following reports that the president tried to interfere in a federal investigation. Investors realise it will take some time for any political action to be taken, therefore turning their attention to the economy and monetary policy. Well, construction work of the mega bridge that runs from Hong Kong to China is nearly completed. Some in the city see it as a link to unity, facilitating more economic opportunities. But others are sceptical about what the open roads may bring. Samantha Vadas reports.
Dubbed one of the world's grandest infrastructure projects, the 19-mile-long bridge linking China to Hong Kong is almost complete. With an estimated $19 billion price tag, more steel than 60 Eiffel Towers, and 8 years in the making, Beijing hopes the payoff will be more than just economic benefits at a time of growing tensions between the two sides. But some feel it'll blur the border.
People are not only thinking about, people of Hong Kong not thinking about it's only a physical bridge. It is, in fact, a bridge trying to unite mainland with Hong Kong, or more, even more. It's a way to blur the position of Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is more and more part of China with every means of direct access.
Despite a guarantee of autonomy with one country, two systems, Hong Kong critics are still suspicious of Beijing's creeping control. And some feel the bridge may draw the city closer to communist China. It's also seen as a white elephant, unlikely to draw the estimated 40,000 vehicles a day. That will be determined at the end of the year when the bridge finally opens, bringing what some economists say new opportunities.
You look at the biggest economies like the US, Japan, Germany, even UK and China. They grew by globalization, making more goods and exporting more and also importing more. I think it's no use to resort to isolationism. Isolationism will only make you poorer because you cannot shut out the world. That is unrealistic.
Once finished, the road will link Hong Kong to the Chinese city of Zhuhai and the territory of Macau, creating what one project manager calls one bridge, three systems.
To Europe now, UK Prime Minister Theresa May's election manifesto launched this week. She set out pledges to cut corporation tax, but also promised to clamp down on executive pay and give workers a bigger voice. But as David Pollard reports, it's her ambition to cut back on net migration, which has the UK business community most worried.
Some voters say it's boring, others unnecessary. But at least the UK election campaign is colourful. A dash of orange for the Finance Minister, red for the Labour opposition party, traditional blue for the ruling Conservatives, though some die-hard supporters complain that that's turned a bit pinker. Theresa May's manifesto this week promising to clamp down on executive pay, give workers a bigger say and make it harder for foreign firms to take over British ones.
Like the government I lead will build a Britain in which work pays, with a higher national living wage and proper rights and protections at work.
But investors warn Britain could turn protectionist if it hinders merger bids, while business leaders are anxious at the hit another election pledge could have on employment.